What the fuck is going on?
What it do?
What it do?
What's happening?
Everything. Dr. David Bell, Mr. Lane Belone, two mighty and powerful, incredible brothers of mine. Just so fucking excited to do life with you guys. And we have been doing some pretty cool shit.
Yeah,
definitely.
We just had a men's retreat back on the weekend of January 9th here in Georgia. And it was a collective of about 5 or 6 guys, and all on, a similar path of growth and understanding about themselves and the world and different things that they were looking at, from spirituality to health and wellness and introspection. And one of my favorite weekends of my life. So
such a powerful and beautiful weekend.
Incredible. We're going to dive into it and all the different things that we did and all the different moments. And there was some really fun, cool stuff going on. But, what did y'all think about it?
David, what do you want to kick it off?
Sure. I think one of the big things for me was the camaraderie of it, just the being able to be there with each other. And we kind of had a little bit of structure, but not a ton, that made it very rigid. So it had a nice flow to it. And one of the things that I really took away from it was like vulnerability, oftentimes, again, it was a men's retreat, and I told a bunch of people, I'm going on this men's retreat, but it's not like a men's weekend in the classic sense of we're going to go, we're going to party and all this. It was really, talking to people about healing, from within, and being able to be together to heal as a community of men. So that's what I went in with, and that's what I got out of it too. So, setting that intention ahead of time, and it was awesome to experience the power of everyone there, and the support. And and as you said, it was beautiful and empowering, and I'm looking forward to more. That's for sure.
Can you tell the folks who may be listening and watching what it is that you do, just for some context?
Oh yeah. So I'm a chiropractor, and I practice a particular type of care called network spinal care, and it deals with not just the physical, but also the mental, emotional aspects of how our nervous system takes in information and then puts that out in the world. And it's about aligning to the authentic experience of your everyday life, finding extraordinary in that. So from that perspective, things like this call me to do some additional internal healing, right? Once you become more aligned, you often start to pull in the things and attract the people and things that help you to start to, achieve your next level and your greatest experience of life. And so that was, meeting you, Jesse, probably originally, and then meeting Lane that weekend and so forth. It's interesting the way the pieces kind of fall in as you're, as you're aligning, you're seeing what your life's purpose is and just what's bringing, or how your energy is showing up in the world and how that's attracting people. So.
Hell yeah, brother. And real quick, before we jump to Lane, what was your intentions and thoughts? And we could dive into this later, but what were you looking forward to coming into the weekend?
I think for me, it was a lot of it was about letting go and letting be, kind of moving out of a place of self-judgment regarding, my own path personally, even professionally, and allowing myself to just experience the overall camaraderie again. Like the camaraderie was a big part for me, to be able to go deep with other men and experience this level of vulnerability that we were able to experience. So.
Oh yeah, brother. Lane, tell us a little bit about you and your thoughts on the weekend and kind of what you came in and who are you? What do you do?
Yeah. Well, I'm a bro, and I'm a bro that likes to travel, explore, pioneer into the unknown. And I've done that my whole life, and I'll continue to do so. And I have a background in the military, special forces, did a lot of crazy stuff, cool stuff, mastered many different skills. And then I got out of the military. My wife and we did a lot of traveling, and, I do a lot of different things. I want to touch on just appreciation of the journey, because the unfoldment of how we all met and, the events that led up to it, incredibly grateful. Our brother, Stephen Kuhn, my business partner, he's the one who linked us together. And then we started, chatting and connecting. And, so for anybody that's listening, it's like those little connections that almost seem too good to be true or serendipitous or synchronistic. Those are the ones that you want to listen to, and just listen to your heart, listen and just take action and see where it goes, And so this very weekend is a product of following our heart, listening to it, and being able to step into it and, really getting a lot out of it. So, so I'm really incredibly grateful for how all this stuff unfolded. And so Jesse, you and I, we got together probably a month before the actual retreat, and we started just kind of loosely putting together a framework, and we put together some intentions, which I think would be very valuable if we share with the audience. Put together a simple framework, and then we just kind of felt it. And so maybe you can kind of discuss, how you approached that kind of month leading up to it. And then we can dive into, the events of the weekend after that, I think.
Yeah, no, the thing I want to hit on first is that relationship. I just onboarded a new client for my wealth management business just before we jumped on this call. And we're all about relationships. We're all about helping each other and growing in life together. And there is no, I without we and we without I. It's just all together. And in my life, I've realized the most color and the vibrancy that's come from my life is from relationships. And so going back to Dr. David's point, he and I started connecting around this masculinity movement a couple of years ago, and thoughts and ideas. And, we're both in alignment with health and wellness and spiritual walks, and they may be a little bit different, but, we do fun shit together, like cold plunges. And we're really into this kind of cool stuff. And to your best friend and business partner, Stephen Kuhn, he and I were introduced under the guise of him being a podcast guest on the Jesse T Show. And it was an entrepreneur that was doing things in his world, but also this Army veteran. And so we had these two things in common from being entrepreneurs and veterans. And that was the premise of the introduction from Zach Knight, who another brother, another guy that I'm eternally grateful for. He introduced me to Stephen Kuhn, and Stephen and I jumped on for 2 minutes on this introductory call to see if it was going to be good for him to be on the podcast. And within those 2 minutes, I'm like, this is going to be a weird question, but are you into spirituality? Are you like tapped in at all? And he's like, why do you ask? And we just went down this whole road of like journeying and self-work and understanding, discovery, plant medicines. And then by the end of the call, I was on a trip to friggin' Peru with him to go do ayahuasca. so which is going to happen in about a month and a half, 2 months from now here. This is January 27th. And so just about 2 months, a little bit less. In March, the Humble Alpha Tour, which we could talk about, we're going to be going to do that, which is going to be insane. So relationships are huge and they're everything. And that's why you and I connected, Lane, because you're his business partner, and you and I essentially fell in love with each other on like a filial love level, like a brother love. And then because of our connection, now David's, plugged into you and y'all are doing stuff together. So it's just this beautiful, alchemy of coming together. So in that same vein of keeping that brotherhood and that connection together, we started kind of crafting at least an idea without forcing it in terms of what would this weekend look like? Who do we want to have there? What are some of the things we'd like to bring to the table? And like, what would we like to have from other people that they can show us and teach us? And so we did start putting together these ideas, and, we did like a little Google Doc and just kind of flirted with some points and some things. And the biggest thing was to create, a safe, beautiful, loving container full of strong, but, emotional men. Like you can go be a savage, but you can also be, a lover and someone who cares. And so this was the type of environment we wanted to bring. Was it's safe to be who you are, and you're going to be received in love. And then we started kind of putting an archetype around it of, well, what types of things do we want to see from this weekend? And how do we evoke those emotions or those feelings? Things like, we're going to be on a lake. We're going to be in nature. So that's going to be powerful in itself. And we saw beautiful things we could talk about in nature, from the birds and the fish and the deer all happening at once, which was crazy. And the sun lighting the friggin' fire on fire. We'll talk about that. But knowing that we had other things that we could do in types of work, from movement's really huge. Dr. David Bell's huge in this. I know I'm huge in this. And it's moving your body as medicine and how to do that. And getting in the water in the middle of friggin' January in Georgia is cold. And we did some cold plunge stuff. We were looking forward for that. And then all this other stuff that came along with it, with, tons of beautiful meditations that you led, Lane, and getting us in the right mindset. and then looking at plant medicine work and like all that entailed. And so we started building this archetype and the structure around the weekend, but it wasn't something where we had to be up at 9:00 and do this at 9:00 and had to be over here by 10:30 and had to be over here by 12. We had this framework that was built around the weekend that if we did most of the stuff that we did, we were going to be happy, but it didn't have to be so constrictive to take away from the essence and the flow of the weekend.
Yeah. And I think it was cool that we had that framework, but it was moment by moment. We asked ourselves, what does this moment call for? And we got quiet, or we just were already aligned in that moment and knew exactly like, hey, that's it. We need to do exactly what we planned. Or it was like, hey, I think we may need to adjust this little thing, or maybe we need to try to just, we're not going to do this other thing. And we just continually ask ourselves, what does this moment call for? And we listened. And I think that oftentimes as we move forward in life, we don't take that pregnant pause and ask ourselves, what does this moment call for? And listen. So I think it was a nice reminder for all of us to take a pregnant pause, ask what the moment calls for, and then listen.
Dave, anything come up from you there in terms of just kind of the weekend and some of the bullet, like the overview we just discussed?
Well, I think again, for me, just that same idea of like that flow, I think that's the word that comes up for me. It just felt like it flowed very well. Again, we had the framework and it wasn't so rigid that we had to be, again, up at a certain time and doing things a certain way. And it worked out exactly as it should, is how I feel about it. Right. I was just like, I got done with the weekend. I was like, man, that was everything it was supposed to be. And that's, I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And again, right, knowing the things that we wanted to do and accomplish on the weekend, right, there were certain things where it was like, this is what we're doing, right, and how that unfolded, and just it really had its this natural ceremony to it, which was something I was looking for, and something that I think that I'm building and trying to create in my own life, not just like morning rituals, but ritual in general, right? Whether it be ritual of breath work and how I approach breath work, or, ritual even in my health and well-being. Right. But like creating some ceremony around that and like kind of a container for that, is what I felt like that weekend was. And I really, again, I think going in with the idea of letting it be as it is, the intention of what I knew it was going to be unfolded more naturally instead of trying to control it. It just became so. And so that's what I really, but again, from that flow perspective, so really felt a lot of ease.
Yeah. And it was, the weekend kicked off beautiful. It was, we got off to a start on Friday, to kick off the weekend. And we met up with one of the other brothers that was going to be with us. And we all jumped in the car together, Lane, myself, and Ben, and we drove up and just started talking about things and kind of getting connected. And the first thing we did when we got up to at least the general area, because we were going to check in at 4:00, but we were up there by like maybe 1 or 2. The first thing we did was we went on a hike. We got into nature, and it was kind of like a dreary, drizzly, overcast, cloudy kind of day, but it was beautiful. And it was 3 dudes. One of them, Ben, hadn't met Lane yet. And I was kind of like that connection for both Ben and Lane. So they knew me, but they were getting to know each other. And we just went on we got into nature and we got our feet muddy and a little wet. And I almost slipped and busted my ass a few times because I had these like running sneakers on that were balled, like they were not good for hiking. Since thanks to Lane's tutelage, I've gotten some hiking boots, which has been great. But going through that hike and just getting into nature and looking and being involved. And, we bumped into some guy that was walking a dog, and Lane had a like interaction with him that was kind of cool. And it was just this starting off point to what was to come. And then we went and grabbed lunch and we kind of started talking about some stuff there. And then we started heading over to the house. And that's when everybody started kind of trickling in, which was Friday afternoon. And so Friday afternoon comes and we go to this beautiful lake house. It's beyond expectation. It's completely ours. So it's somewhat secluded. We have neighbors to the right, neighbors to the left, but either one neighbor wasn't even there. And then the other neighbor was very kind of doing their own thing. And we'll talk about him, the Bob Ross painter, in a little bit. He's so funny, but we get there and it's this 2-level, completely renovated or brand new on the inside, lake house. And it's modern, it's beautiful, it's open, it's flowing. To the left, when you walk in of the house, there's a game room that we spent, a couple hours in playing ping pong that night and like talking a little shit and just stepping into our divine masculine a little bit, having fun. And then, as you go through the house on the first floor, when you walk in, you go outside and it opens up to this double, like 2-tier deck system where you kind of walk down, you get this beautiful sitting area, you walk down again, there's a fire pit right there, which was gorgeous. And then you look straight down the hill, which is maybe 100 yards, give or take. And there's a lake right there, and it's our lake. And there was this 2-story kind of like almost like pontoon deck system where you could kind of walk on and then walk up and be on this upper deck. And, just the environment in itself. And that was the container just from that house. It had so much influence on the weekend because there was so much to do, but at the same time, you didn't have to do anything. What did y'all think about the actual location?
Yeah, I thought it was great. And, we scoped it out, and you're the one who, ultimately found it and all that. And, it was exactly what it needed to be. And the weeks leading up to it, we were kind of toying around with the intention of what it needed to be, what we wanted it to be, what aspects, what kind of characteristics that we were looking for. And we definitely were looking for water, and we found it. But I kind of want to go back to the flow because, I think it's a really important thing. And 2 words come up for me is experience and osmosis. And it's really difficult to explain how flowy the event of the weekend was until you actually experience it. So my recommendation for anybody listening right now is, if you know somebody that talks about flow and you feel like they really mean it, like they know what they're talking about, go hang out with them. Go experience life with them in a certain capacity, whether that's a simple hike or that's going on a weekend retreat like we're talking about here. But experiencing and via osmosis, this energy of flow and being able to actually see it, feel it, experience it is going to change your life to a certain degree, because you're going to be like, wow, that is exactly what that, I've heard people talk about it. I've read books of people talk about it, but until you actually experience it, it's going to be very difficult for you to put to words. But it's, so that I think is such a powerful concept, just diving into an experience of flow with somebody that can radiate that kind of energy.
Yep. Yeah, it was, it hit off on the right foot right away. And it was a beautiful collection of men from different backgrounds and different experiences. And, people that had experienced at some different level, different types of work, and some people that were new to this type of work and this type of experience. And so everybody brought their own flavor and their own flair. And it was just this perfect amount of everything, where you had some people that might be new to it, some people that might be advanced, some that are like intermediate. And it was just this amalgamation of, it was just perfect. We couldn't have asked for anything better, I don't believe. And, that first night was just kind of a coming together of brothers and aligning and connecting and really just starting to create that space of sacredness and safety and flow. And then Friday night, I don't really remember too much about Friday night outside of just kind of hanging out and just being dudes. I think maybe we decided to go get a couple beers, even though we initially didn't want to. Was that Friday night or was that Saturday night? What happened Friday night outside of playing some games in the game room?
I think we jumped on, like, we shared some things on like YouTube a little bit. We were kind of prepping ourselves with some ideas and things.
That's right.
It sat around the couches for a little while. We're laughing. I know we're laughing a bunch because there were some funny things going on there. And then which that was a ton of fun, because like I wasn't expecting any of that, and then it was just like, oh man, yeah, this is like, it was a good feel. We definitely played some ping pong and stuff because I remember we were playing with the heaters, keep the garage warm.
That's right.
And then aside from that, though, right, I think we did. I don't know if we grabbed beers that night or not.
It was the next night. Yeah, it was actually I think it was Saturday night potentially. Was it Saturday night? We got beers one night. I don't friggin' remember. But it wasn't like we were trying to get drunk. It was like 1 or 2 beers, maybe some wine. It was just to kind of like chill. And we had talked about coming into this weekend, a little prepared and not necessarily doing certain things, but it just called for it. And so we went out. And was it Friday night, Lane, or Saturday night? Do we remember?
I think it was Friday, actually.
I think it was Friday night. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, it was just another thing that we necessarily didn't have to do, but it just felt right. And so, and we ended up hanging out, and that night was pretty chill. And then the next morning, unless you got anything from Friday, Lane or David, but the next morning kind of kicked off more of the festivities, if you will. And so, there was this idea of getting the body moving, opening up the heart space, the mind, and doing a little bit of uncomfortable things to kind of feel what that was like. And so the morning started off with us gathering around about 9 o'clock in the morning. Some people were up earlier. Some people kind of got up just before, and we started doing Qigong, which is energy and flow, like the practice of flow and energy. And it was beautiful because some people haven't done it before. It was more of a higher intensity Qigong where we're really getting the heart rate up. And what I was trying to deploy there was we were getting ready for a cold plunge, and we were getting ready to go freeze our balls off. And some people hadn't had that experience. And it's important to know how to heat your body back up. It's important to know how to control it. God forbid, if you're in a situation, you can create an internal fire that warms you up. And so everybody did this Qigong for 10, 15 minutes. We were doing the swings, the kind of keeping our eyes on the horizon. And then we were also doing like what I call ape hands, where you come down to the ground and you're squatting, and it warmed us up and it got the heart rate going. And it got people. There was one guy, Ben, who was not too sure he was going to do the cold plunge. Right. And he was like freaking out about it. And ever since then, just to jump forward, like a good Tarantino movie, he's been taking cold showers every day since this. So this is really cool. But he ended up deciding he was going to do the cold plunge. And so we walk outside, bunch of cavemen, it can't be much more than 40 degrees outside. The water's just about the same. And, we set up the camera equipment to kind of document the experience, and we get in there. And it's cold, right? But I think people started to adjust, and people started to center, and they started to focus. And for people that I thought, might have a tougher time, like Ben or Justin, because they weren't really excited about it, they really stepped into their power. And Lane's over there counting away. He's trying to tread water. It's really funny to watch. And I'm loving it. I love the cold water. I'm like backstroking a little bit, like it's fun. And by the end of it, Ben, who was the most concerned about the cold, came out so empowered with so much. He had like a physical release, and he yelled, and he's like, "Let's go!" And like he's super, and like that's not necessarily his character, right? Like that's not something he normally does. What was the cold plunge and the Qigong like for both of y'all? What did y'all feel with it?
For me, I one of the things that's interesting that came to mind when we were just talking about this was my ability to let go and allow you to be healers in my life, right? And then even allowing the other men to be to heal aspects of me, and like let go of, like, because of being like in this realm of like holistic health and things like that, letting go of me as the healer necessarily, and allowing to heal through others. So that was the first thing for me, because the Qigong was different, right? I've done some Qigong, but it's different breath work, different way of connecting with my body. I haven't done a ton. So like, it was like really, okay, like I'm going to flow with this. Right. And it really helped because I've done the Wim Hof before, and it helped get that fire going. Right. Yep. And then when I got into the water, that experience I've had where I've done the cold plunge before, we did cold plunge, about a year ago as well. And like, it was, I really had that same experience. It was like, I snapped right back into that moment and was like able to find that center. The other thing I liked about it is the vulnerability of everyone to like talk about how they felt about before they went in, after, during. That was huge, right? Just being able to say, man, I wanted to bolt. I wanted to get out. And I think it was Justin mentioned. Once Lane said 30 seconds, I was like, okay, I got 30 seconds. But it was cool because like, yeah, we all know it's not easy, right? And nobody had to be like stone faced and hold it all in. It was like, yeah, man, like, it's uncomfortable, and to be able to be open and talk about that discomfort, I think, again, continued to set up the rest of the weekend. So that's what I took away from that.
Yeah, I think that, there's a lot of simple things that we can do in life that can showcase something internal that we need to deal with. And so just this simple example of us getting into some cold fucking water, there's a lot of things that come up, like the mental going into it, internally, you're like, do I really need to do this? Do I really need to prove how, I'm tough enough, or, why am I, doing this, or what am I going to release, And so as all these thoughts come in, we can take a step back and be the observer of those thoughts. And we can also be able to express verbally. So that way other guys can hear what I'm thinking. I can hear what you're thinking. And then we can put some things together and be able to observe ourselves through other people. And so these kinds of, activities where, a small group of guys get together, us as a group, as a collective, we become different aspects of each other. So like, there's a guy that's, more funny. There's a guy that's more serious. There's a guy more playful, and so we can see ourselves through that other guy. by looking at us as a collective or as a group. So a simple thing of jumping in some cold water can really pull out some things that we can work on, some shadow work. And then also at the end of it, after the fact, it's like, oh, damn, I feel really good for doing that very simple thing. And you can also look at how empowering you can be by just doing simple things, So I think these cold plunges, and other simple things that we can do in life that are very simple, but they can bring up a lot of internal things that we haven't yet to deal with, or it could be shadow work.
I was playing pickleball with Ben last night, and he brought it up. He brought up the fact that he was doing cold showers every day, and he's like, I don't love it, but he's like, when I start my day off with something uncomfortable, it's pretty much like downhill sledding from there. It's easier day, and I've come to love cold showers. I started doing it about, I want to say 2 years ago, and I did the Wim Hof January challenge where he does like a cold shower on January, and you're supposed to do 30 seconds when you first start out, and every day add like 10 seconds. By the end of the month, you got a couple minutes in there, you're doing like a whole shower cold. And there's a lot of like health and wellness stuff. There's a lot of mentality behind it. I mean, because it's a cold shower. Like no one wants to take a cold shower, and you're callousing your mind and you're toughening your mind to be able to do other things that are harder. And for me, when I take a cold shower, I get energetic. Like I don't drink coffee at all. Lane knows this. Dr. David knows this. Lane's at my house trying to like make coffee, and I get like the worst coffee and like this little coffee machine, and just to have when people come over. But like I don't fucking drink. It's
perfect.
Coffee. Yeah, it was okay. It worked out. But then he talks about like we go shopping for food for the prep for the weekend, and he's like looking for this certain coffee because he just he was being sweet, but the coffee was garbage. So anyway, the cold stuff is really important too for health and wellness, reducing inflammation, helping your cells regenerate, repair on a mitochondrial level. Like you can do so much with these free natural tools, right? And it was just a beautiful way to bond. And this goes back to even military, like having your battle buddy next to you. Like, are you willing to go through shit with the person next to you? And that's what builds trust, and that's what builds, brotherhood. And so it was immediately kicking off this beautiful thing. And then that Qigong practice that we did with the breath, breathing through the nose, out through the nose with the breath work. And we took that quick learning that we had before the cold plunge, and we went right back into the house and we did it again. And we warmed the body up again, because if you just went right to a warm shower, you're not going to warm up the internal parts of your body. And so you're still going to have a cold feeling. So we did the Qigong again, warmed up, and then everybody started doing the showers and kind of getting ready for the rest of the day. And so jumping into that next part of the morning, probably around 11 o'clock-ish, 11:15, we started going into like mindset and what to expect. And so what we were going to do next is we were going to work with a sacred plant medicine that I've been working with personally for about a year now, psilocybin mushrooms. And there's so much that goes behind this, and there's so many reasons. And I could just say for me, what it's done, it's changed my life dramatically. It's changed the way I look at the world. It's changed the way that my relationship with God, it's changed my ego. It's changed my relationship with myself, and it's changed my relationship with other people. And so I know the power of it and what it can do, and sitting in it in a ceremonial, sacred way, how powerful it can be. And so kind of before we dive into that experience, Lane, you did a really big job with creating the overview of like what to expect and having the mindset going into it. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, we gathered in a half circle and we just started talking. And, I think the important thing is not to explain too much, but really discuss about intentions,
So just had a little technical difficulties. This is the good and the bad with Zoom. Zoom allows people to connect all over the world just with the touch of a button and some technology, but also when the technology is not running right, you can lose people. So as of right now, Lane is working on getting back into the room, and we'll get him as soon as we can. But yeah, for you, David, in terms of like leading up to, when we actually dropped in and sat in ceremony with the mushrooms, where was your head at and your heart at? Like, what were you thinking about, and like, what were you kind of looking forward to?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me was to drop, like, kind of release all expectation, and just allow myself to be in a place of like whatever comes, right? We sat, and one of the things that I really enjoy is like I enjoyed the intention aspect. We journaled a little bit, right? And I set intentions to, to be awakened to what I need to release, blocks to my relationships, my business, things of that nature, right? Whatever that is, honestly, it's like one of those things, like you don't know that you don't know. So I wanted to open myself up to that. And then one of the things that honestly I really enjoyed was Lane put on the Philosopher's Mixtape, which from that perspective, the music, and then also just listening to these men talk and their voices, like these concepts they were bringing up, I just was able to sit back and kind of like let that wash over me as I prepared to move into ceremony. And that was really impactful for me. Right. There were even things from that I heard, right, that spoke to me. Right. So immediately, even before ceremony had fully like started, right, and I've been fully dropped in, it was just like I had already started connecting to this like vibration from the universe of what I need to be doing. And I'll just share one of the things I had was there was a guy talking about a monk, and he said, it's not pushing the wheelbarrow that is hard, it's thinking about it that is hard. And it was a lot around like just doing what you need to do, like, right, very much what you need to do. And it was kind of like that experience of what I think Lane was talking about, you might have been talking about, like where you experience something within you to know to step forward and take the action or do the thing, right?
Yep.
And being in flow with that too, right? In the moment what needs to be done and or said or anything like that. And so it was like the stop thinking and just doing it, right? And that resonated with me. So, because I think I do go to that place. I disconnect my head and heart sometimes. And the idea is like, okay, bring those together, because the heart drives the thought process, and I allow the heart to drive my thought process. And so that was like a big takeaway for me with it all. And then I found myself out in the front yard doing different things, but
we'll get into
rolling, doing my rope rolling and things, but got his own there, and but that was a whole other thing. But that intention setting was, I think, really critical to set it up, and then again to release that and just like let that go and let it be what it was, right? Instead of trying to force anything to happen, I got out of it again exactly what I needed without having to say, "Oh, this is what I need to get from it." Just allowing that to be. So, and Lane set that up like really well. It was like a home run hit. Like just the way he got us prepared for it.
Yeah, he just sent a message saying that the internet is completely down at the house, and that it's never happened before, and he's sorry. So we'll give him love and give him space, and if he can get back on through this conversation, that'll be great. But the intentions are everything, and I've learned through this most recent ceremony that I've sat with psilocybin mushrooms that how amazing they'll play out in your life if you set intentions and you really believe and you really look forward to implementing any as we call them, downloads you may receive during the ceremony. And setting the intentions was huge, and setting the setting, right? So, that setting was beautiful that you mentioned, with having this music on initially that was kind of, it might've been binaural beats and just calming and soothing and just kind of playing in the background as we're all, circled up and we're all talking about the things to come. And we all have our journals ready, and we start to writing down intentions, and we go over the process of how to set an intention and how to write down an intention, because it's important to write it down. As you said it, it's this old belief that I've come to believe in, where when I was younger in my career, I started out with a sales company, and they were really great about setting goals and having you set your own goals, where you would write your goals. And I swear every goal that I written down came true. And it's just this weird thing of putting pen to paper, and you're starting to like create these spells in a sense. It sounds really weird.
Yeah.
But the intention comes behind it. And, all of a sudden it starts happening up here in your mind, and then you're putting it to paper. So you're creating something. Right. And so everybody started creating. Everybody wrote down their intentions. Everybody started thinking about their intentions. The mood went from the binaural beats and the music to, like you said, the Philosopher's Mixtape, which Alan Watts. I'd never heard Alan Watts before in my life, but now I'll listen to him for the rest of my life. And the concepts and the thoughts and the strategies and the things that he talked about. Ram Dass was in there. There were some other people. And the weirdest one is, after we dropped in, was Gary Vee. Gary Vee came on, and he's this brash, loud talking, but he's so philosophical. Like, he's so good for it. And I laughed because I yelled out to Lane. I'm like, Lane, why is Gary Vee on right now? And all of a sudden I started listening. And I'm like, oh shit, that's why Gary Vee's on right now. Because as much as he's a business minded, get after it kind of guy, he's some sort of wizard, man. He's the magician in a good way. He's got these beautiful thoughts that transcend business and transcend life. And so that's why he was on there. But for me, my intentions, I wrote down 3 of them, and they've all come to fruition since then. It's incredible. As soon as the weekend was over, these things were showing up in my life. And the first one was to work on a relationship with my ex-wife and to do some work that was left undone. And I was curious about our future together, curious about things that we left, that there was so much love and there was so much possibility. And I really wanted to work on the love that was between us and the truth that we needed to share. And that's a conversation for a whole other time, but it's incredible what's come from that. The business standpoint for me was honestly having more discipline in my business, because I deploy discipline everywhere, but sometimes the business for some reason is like the last place to get it. And not always, but that's sometimes how it works. And so, I have discipline when it comes to health and wellness. It's 80-20, like 80% of the time I'm on it. 20% of the time I'm eating junk food, like whatever. So 80-20, which I think is a good rule to live by. But I wanted more discipline in my business because I knew there were things that I could be doing, with more intention, and things that I could be showing up better for myself in my business. And immediately that Monday when we came back, I've fucking been on fire. Like it's insane. It's insane. And then the other part was playfulness. So I had relationships, I had business, and I had life, and life was playfulness. And playfulness for me, I'm a pretty playful guy, but I kind of noticed myself getting a little serious and getting away from being playful, especially even just with myself or people like you or my kids. And so really focusing on getting back to being playful and writing those intentions down. Then, we ate the mushrooms. We all circled up, which was pretty cool. And we looked at all this, amazing fungi. And we all said, okay, this is what I want to do. This is how much I want to do based on the experience we wanted to have. There's all different kinds of levels, and the level that everybody picked was the right level for them. And we all had our medicine, we ingested, we sat down, and then within 30 to 45 minutes, at least for me, actually pretty quickly, I think even within 20 minutes, I got my visuals, I started seeing things, started feeling things, emotions started coming over me. And it was a very playful experience for me. So I started calling into that playfulness before it even started. And I'll tell you, for some of the things that I experienced, I kept hearing the word teacher and feeling the word teacher. And for people that haven't tried this before, it's not like a voice that you actually hear. It's almost like this knowing that comes to you. Like I don't hear a voice. And I've heard people talk about, you don't hear a voice. It's just like all of a sudden the best way to describe this, and I say this a lot, is if you've ever seen the movie The Matrix, and in the beginning of the movie, part 1, Neo is brought to the realization that he was living in a fantasy world, but this is the real world. And this is where we have to operate from if we want to make change. And so Morpheus, because it's a cool action scene, takes him to this karate studio and he learns Kung Fu. And he wakes up and he comes back out of this program that he was in, and he wakes up and he's like, I know Kung Fu. This is exactly what happens with these types of plant medicines, where you're awake and you're conscious, but you almost wake up out of it when you're done with this new knowledge and this new feeling and this new understanding about yourself or life or whatever it is. And so that teacher thing kept coming to me. And I told Lane, I was like, I don't know if it's the medicine telling me that this is the type of variant that it is, because it was a teacher mushroom. That's like what they were. But if it was just saying, hey, you're taking teacher mushrooms, or hey, you got to keep working on this teacher thing. The second thing I saw, which is really strange, and I've tried to wrap my head around this, but I kind of have an idea where it's coming from. I saw an image of a penis just like entering something, not necessarily like a vagina or anything. It's just like I saw this weird thing, and I don't know if it had to do with like my sex life or whatever, but I did see that. I felt love. I felt completely held in the moment, like I felt safe. I saw amazing, vibrant colors. For me, this wasn't a super visual journey. I've had insanely visual journeys to the point where like I have tattoos on my body from things that I've seen. This was more, it wasn't as defined, but I did see some shapes. I saw some geometry stuff. And I also saw these, what I could describe as beings that were like this black silhouette of a face, wasn't discernible. And in the middle of the face were 3 stones, like in the middle of the forehead, different colors, like a blue, a yellow, and a pink, I believe. I have to go back and think about it. But so for me, I had this beautiful experience, and it was very playful. It was light, did some work. As we're going through it, people started kind of getting around, moving around, doing what they wanted to do. Lane and I got up, and because we were kind of next to each other the whole time, and we go out we see, you're outside talking with another guy, the other guy's sitting in the chair, and we're like looking out the window at this guy who's painting his windowsill. He's standing on a ladder. He has his paintbrush, and it looked like it was the most amazing thing this guy's ever done in his life. Like, we're standing there looking, laughing our asses off at this guy. Like, he's completely in love with, like, most people would hate to do something like that, like on a Saturday. Like most people like the honey-do list, or I have to do this. Like, every stroke was a work of art. He didn't have earbuds in. Wayne and I were like, this guy probably, like, he's done enough plant medicine in his life to where he just loves life now. but we were just laughing. And I was like, this guy's like fucking Bob Ross. He's like, I'm just going to create this beautiful little tree and I'm going to love it. Like, he was just in the zone. Anyway, what was your experience like after you dropped in?
Well, first, I remember seeing him up there. And I think Justin and I were pretty enthralled with our conversation at the time to see it. But that's funny that you guys experienced it that way. Were you guys still inside when that was happening?
Oh yeah, we were standing in the like where the couches were that overlooked the deck, and like looking out the side window. We were both staring at him, just laughing at each other, thinking about what he must have been thinking the whole time.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. For me, so I didn't have a ton of visuals. I felt most of it like within my body. I felt like very energetic. Like I just this like this heightened sense of awareness of my surroundings, things like that. And I decided to go outside and do some of the RMT, the rope rolling that I've been working on, which is just like, basically it's a neurology thing, but it also can be fun. There's a lot of flow to it, right? We were talking about flow earlier. So I put in a set of headphones and put on the same music that was part of that Philosopher's mixtape.
Yep.
And just kind of like got into that. And like one of the things I realized was like, again, this play thing is like, man, I don't just pick this rope up and do it sometimes and just let myself kind of get lost in it. So that was something cool. And I've been doing more of that since coming back, right? It's like giving myself the space to do something that's like playful and also therapeutic at the same time for me, right? It's like, because now I can just like spin the rope and it doesn't have to be a certain way, or I'm not trying to learn the moves, I'm just doing, right?
Just being.
Yeah. And then I, as I was in the front yard, I got called by this American flag that was waving on the wind, right? Like the wind was just right. I could just watch it. And I actually went through a period where I experienced like a deep sense of mourning and sadness. And I think it was more for what's been going on in our country lately, in all honesty. I had this like mourning for the loss of like what this symbol, right, originally stood for, right? And just like kind of just the divisiveness that seems to be happening. And so I just, I've never really like felt myself in that kind of place. Like I've never felt like overly patriotic. Like, it's not like I drive around with like American flags, like waving from my car or anything, but like, it was just a really interesting thing that I wasn't for me. Right. And I just was like it was like this thing of beauty to watch this flag just float on the wind, and then just have this sense of like, man, there's a lot happening right now. And to just kind of like mourn the loss of just what feels like the identity of this country a little bit to some extent. So, and that was a crazy thing. Again, I didn't expect any of that to come up, and I was just like, whoa, and again, because sometimes you're not in that place where the simple things catch you, right? You're like, we take that for granted. Like that was a really peaceful moment for me to experience that and just watch this happen, right? Just see this simple thing with the flag, and that was cool. And then I ended up on the porch for a few minutes, just rocking in the chair and just kind of being. I don't think I really even thought about a lot of things. It just was. And then that was when I heard the music eventually, and I found Justin in the back, listening to music and so forth. And it was funny because one of the things that Lane had kind of said was like, at some point we may all want to separate and go do our thing. And there was a ton of flow around that. There was so much ease with that. It just kind of happened and unfolded. And then when I went back into the backyard with Justin, he said, I was just thinking that I wanted to start talking to someone or connect with somebody. And so it was perfect timing. And then him and I just, connected on a deep level too, about all kinds of things, about love, about being able to, one of the things I've been reading a lot and trying to learn a lot more is about like opening up your heart and being able to sit in love,
Hell
right?
yes. Hell
No
yes.
matter what's happening in your life. So, all right, we got Lane back. What's up?
Lane is back. Welcome back, sir.
Technical difficulties. Apologies.
And you're in a better chair now. You're in your spot.
Yeah, I don't have as good a microphone, but the content's going to be just as good.
Yeah, man. We were just going through. We didn't get too far. We talked about the intentions, setting them. What my intentions were. We kicked off David with his intentions and his what he started feeling and working into, and then we started kind of talking about like the very first kind of part of the journey after dropping in and us choosing what type amount of medicine called to us, and then dropping in and kind of what was starting to happen. So if you want to just kind of, David, if you had a thought to continue, if not, Lane, if you want to jump in and just talk about kind of your intentions and kind of what happened as you started kind of creeping into the experience.
Yeah, go ahead, Lane.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So my intentions were to step into my power, and there's a couple of smaller intentions underneath that. But it was becoming more of myself and to sink really in who I really am, and to be able to shed the old things or aspects that aren't actually who I am, but just kind of, programmed from society or from parents or teachers or other leaders or whatever, and really just sinking in to myself. And you guys started about or talked about the Philosopher's Mixtape, how we kind of dove into that.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a real nice kind of segue, because oftentimes, especially guys, we can get really stuck in our head, and the mental chatter of like, when it's going to get kicked in, what's it going to feel like, how am I going to realize all these powerful truths about myself, so all these things are like this mental chatter, and sometimes it's really nice to have this kind of forward thinking philosophical wisdom to allow your mind to just flow with the wisdom of the Philosopher's Mixtape. And so instead of you thinking all this chatter about what's it going to be like, you're distracting your lower mind with high vibrations, wisdom, philosophical things that are going to help you on your journey, maybe today, maybe a year from now, maybe 50 years from now, who knows, until you start to experience what you need to experience. So I thought it was a beautiful way to begin the journey. And then did you talk about the painter?
Please tell your version of it, because I did get into it. It was really funny, but talk about yours.
Yeah. So Jesse and I, we were like, just kind of, we took a step back and we were just observing, and we were just kind of in that transition from kind of more serious philosophical kind of vibe from the Philosopher's Mixtape to like feel a little light, a little playful. And we were like, this is a little different than, other types of journeys. And we were just feeling it out. And then we just all of a sudden noticed right next door through the window, this guy that was just painting his heart out. And this dude was just into it. And it was just so beautiful to watch this guy just love the art and the craft and the moment of what he was doing. And because we could look at painting as this thing where like, oh, I gotta be up on this ladder, I gotta paint this thing. But he was just so careful, and every stroke was just exactly what it needed to be. And then the kicker though was like, he moved the ladder to another window that was like right by, and he just did a little touch up. And it was just like, you could just tell this guy was just enjoying what he was doing, and we were just cracking up. And man, it was just. And then a beautiful moment was like, we were looking at that, and then it was being able to see David and what was the other guy's name? Justin, just having this like beautiful conversation, just full of energy, passion. There was laughter, there was serious, and we were just we couldn't hear anything, but it was this beautiful thing where it was just like, man, this is just a perfect moment, exactly what it needs to be.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was really funny because we were kind of like guessing what people were saying or doing. And for that guy that was painting, I was telling David, it was like Bob Ross. He put so much love into like his little tree, like his happy little tree. And then he goes up to this other window and he just does like one little touch up and like walks away. like it wasn't like you didn't even have to move the ladder for that, but he's so in love with what he's doing. He just saw like one little thing and he just made it perfect in his world. And the guy was like, I'm pretty sure I don't remember headphones. I don't remember any, like he was just flowing. Like, and I joked to Lane, I was like, this guy might be like already down the path of plant medicines or spirituality. He's just loving him some life.
Like he's already there.
He's already tapped in, man. But you know, it was beautiful. The moment for me was what it needed to be. The intentions, I was telling Dr. David, the intentions have completely played out in the last couple of weeks and very heavily in a beautiful way. Everything I called into my life has completely deployed itself and been so apparent in my life. And the three things were a relationship with my ex and discipline in my business and playfulness in my life. And all of those things have happened. And so, you know, this journey, like you said, was much different. I was expecting, and I wasn't trying to control it, but I was expecting, you know, more visuals, things like this, but it was light visuals for me. It was a lot of emotion, a lot of playfulness. I remember at one point, Dr. David's laughing his ass off, like over on the side over there. And I'm like, this is just, everybody's happy. Right. And you know, I don't know if there's anything else to talk about during the actual kind of journey, but like later that night was really cool too. We circled around the fire, had a sharing circle, and then you led a despacho ceremony.
Yeah. Well, did you talk about the passing the baton of light yet?
No. Talk about that.
Yeah. So, you know, towards the later afternoon, it was, I think you and I, Jesse, that were out at the dock on the second tier.
Yep.
And we were just looking at nature, looking at the sun, looking at the animals, just soaking in every bit of the moment and just really appreciating, like, damn, this is just a perfect moment. You know what I mean? It was just, and it was, that whole weekend was like that. It was just like, can it get any better than this? Can it get any perfect than this? And then David comes by and he just starts adding to his part of the conversation, and we're just elevating each other, noticing each other's presence. And, you know, it was just a really powerful moment. And then all of a sudden, Justin and Ben start walking down. Justin's got some music. He's got some tunes. And he brings in that kind of like, all right, let's get into it kind of thing. And then it started to get a little more playful. And by this time, the sun was kind of going down on the horizon. And, you know, from our vantage point, we were on the second tier of this dock. And, you know, like we were saying, we're about 100 meters away from the house or so. And we looked back and we looked at the fire, and, you know, there's trees and stuff like that, but the perfect alignment that the sun basically like shone, you know, was like shining on that fire, like right as the sun was setting. And it was just like really beautiful moment to where it was like the sun, the daytime light, was passing the baton off to this fire and saying, hey, fire, you know, give this light to these bros, these men that are stepping into their greatness. You know, I've done my part during the day. Now you take care of them in the nighttime. And it was just this really beautiful moment. And then we walked up and, then we started just fellowshipping and talking about our experience. And then I think it was a couple hours later where we did the despacho.
Yeah. Before we get into despacho real quick, that moment was so surreal and we couldn't make it up. Literally the light's last ray was kissing the fire that we just started. And it that one ray just dawned on it. And in that moment, as the sun was going down, there was this crazy interplay of nature. There was at least one bird of prey, right, hawk, whatever, falcon, whatever it was, one of the two. And it looked like it was kind of on repeat. Like we were wondering if like it was like this glitch in the matrix where like, cause it kept on catching it as where it was started, where it was going. We'd look back up, it was exactly. And then we were like, it's probably just circling. Like it's probably just us being a little bit, you know, coming back to reality. But the beautiful part of that was, air, land, and sea converged at one point where the hawk or bird of prey was circling in the air. We saw a fish jumping out of the water. And then there were two deer. There may have been more, but I saw two deer standing right there. So all within like this triangle in front of us, there was a fish over here, there was the bird up here, and there was the deer over here. And it was just, you can't make this shit up. Like, and who knows what that means? It could have just been nature doing its thing. It could have been, you know, weird serendipitous stuff. But for the sun to give us light and fire and pass its energy on, and for the animals, like, it was just super cool. It was awesome.
Yeah. And maybe that trifecta of an experience was just to hey, nature is here for us. If only we just look at it and observe it and appreciate it. You know. Yeah. So you want to talk about the despacho?
Yeah. So, I'll let you, you're the master of ceremonies when it comes to that. But just in terms of, we got around the fire, and it was this, we had picked up firewood from this place on the way up. And it was like, we kind of wanted a beta test, like traditional logs or like this weird, like Swedish spindle looking thing that was cut perfectly. And, we got it lit, which was great. And, it stayed lit for hours. And we get up there, and we're just kind of downloading with each other, and we're conversing and talking, and people were, discussing what they need to. And the whole premise was, at some point, this is where you could talk about it, because you're the master of ceremonies here, but we wanted to do this spot show and talk about, if you'll do a better job than I can, I would talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So despacho is an ancient tradition. Many cultures around the world do a version of it, and we did our own version, at the place that we were at. And basically it goes like this, to where we put our thoughts on a piece of paper, and it could be a prayer, it could be intentions, it could be what we're stepping into, it could be what we're letting go of. It could be any and all of those things if we so desire. And basically what we're doing is we're bringing out this intangible prayers, intentions that are in our head or even in the spoken word, and we're bringing it to the concrete material world. And so we put it on this piece of paper, and we actually decided to share it in a circle before we actually did the ceremony. And, the sharing of it was part of the ceremony. And so, these are our most private moments, these very sacred intentions, and very intimate. And all of us shared, and it was a really powerful moment just to get it out. And so what we did after that, we had it on paper, and we decided to go to the fire. And the fire represents, a lot of different things, and it also allows us to take this physical thing, burn our intentions, burn our prayers, and as we see the smoke, rise from the fire, it's a tangible, significant moment that says we give it up to the universe, we give it up to the all, and we relinquish control of needing to figure out how to make that prayer a reality, or how to make those intentions a reality. We just surrender, and it is a beautiful way to tangibly, physically, and along with all that, emotionally and spiritually and intellectually, let it all go and let the universe do what it do. And it's just a really beautiful, powerful thing to do.
What was your experience like with that, Dr. David? That was my first one, so I didn't know what to expect, and it was gorgeous. But what about for you?
Well, that's my first one as well, and for me, it went along with a lot of the intention for me to just be in a place of release and letting go and letting be what is, right. As it says, like Lane, when you say let the universe do what it do, So I love that, and that's so it was really. It was a great bonding moment again for us, right? That felt that camaraderie. We're all standing around and supporting one another. It really was a nice cap to that day, because we had been in that place of support for one another, and then being able to have this little bit of ceremony that we could make our own, and and be there for one another in that way. And so it was powerful for me, and I enjoyed being around the fire and connecting in that way. So.
One of the backdrops of this whole day was our buddy Ben, who brought his Traeger portable grill, was like loving on some pork shoulder, which we had these amazing pork sandwiches in that evening. Like, he showed up so well. That was like his medicine. His ceremony was putting that together. And, as we're kind of wrapping up the despacho, like, everybody's like, all right, it's time to eat. Let's go. Like, we haven't eaten all day for the most part. We fasted all day. We get in the house, we start kind of picking a little bit, and everybody just starts kind of getting in communion with each other and like downloading and talking about their time. And, that was some of the best friggin' pork sandwich I've ever had in my life. Like, it was so good. Right. And he was telling us like how his favorite way to do it is. And he was just like the artist of that moment. It was really beautiful. And, that evening led into more conversation and, checking out some comedy and some stuff on some stuff on like YouTube, and just kind of like reconnecting to each other and to the world. But, as we stepped into Sunday, my mindset was, there's this breath work that I have been taught by an amazing human being who's going to help run the next retreat. Her name's Tori Gordon. She's a friend. She's my soul sister. She's a client of mine. She's just this badass human being. And she did this breath work ceremony with me, which changed my life. It was a couple months ago. And Lane actually got to see the after effect. I was like crying. I was a hot mess. And like, but it was so powerful, and it's natural and it's free. And it was something I wanted to bring to the table, but we didn't have enough time for it in terms of the day and the checkout. And so like, we just kind of shelved it for them. But the idea was to have this breath work to kind of bring us into our bodies and all these different things and our emotions. But just wanted to bring that up because it was something we thought about doing, but based on that whole not forcing anything and not trying to make something that it wasn't supposed to be, like we just let it go. So it was okay. And then, that morning, Dr. David showed the fuck up and he made this beautiful breakfast, like enough to feed 50 soldiers kind of deal. And, Justin had his, his thing the night before with the sausage. And like, it was just this beautiful community of men that were just showing up for each other. That morning was, I don't remember the first thing that we did. What was the first thing we did Sunday morning outside to eat? Was there another event after that?
I think originally we were going to cold plunge, but we ended up tabling as well. I think we kind of just hung. We were just kind of doing our thing. Everybody was waking up in their due time, and it didn't feel very rushed. And I know that then we all banded together to clean the place up, and get everything kind of ready, which I think in and of itself was therapeutic in its own way.
Cathartic, yeah.
And then Lane finished us off with the thought experiment of you have 5 minutes before you die. What are you going to do with those 5 minutes? And that was huge.
By far and away, Lane, I want you to, I know you don't want to ruin the experience for people because part of it is not knowing the whole deal. But for me, that was life-changing. The 5 minutes, what would I do with the 5 minutes? And for me, it was, I cried visibly. I didn't give a fuck either. Like, it's like, I've gotten to this place in life where being a strong man means that you cry when it's time to cry, and you don't care who's around you. And more so in the sense of like, not in a place of ego, you don't care, but it does matter who's around you in terms of loving you and being there for you. And everybody showed the fuck up for me, man. I was crying and I was talking about my experience and, what made me get to that point. Dr. David was like the first one to jump up when we hugged, and, it was a beautiful for 5 minutes, and the profound impact that it had on me to this day. And again, free, don't need to do any medicine, just got to do the work. And it was so life-changing. Lane, can you talk a little bit about that and how you administered that and what the premise of it is?
Yeah. So it's about potency and presence. A lot of times we can get distracted by focusing on not the present moment. What's going to happen next week? What happened last week? What's going on with the next meal? What's going on? So when we get fully present, we harness this potency of ourselves. And that was the magic behind what made this so powerful, is that it was as if we only had 5 minutes. What are we going to do with it? And just by being able to get fully present in that kind of thought experiment, exercise, whatever you want to call it, it revealed the most important things in our lives. And sometimes it's, like, oh man, I haven't done the thing I really wanted to do in life, a little bit of regret. Or it could be, man, I really need to look at relationships or things that make me feel alive. Or it's like, maybe I got some unfinished business, or it could be a combination of all these different things. And so by us getting fully present and having this potency of ourselves, it automatically directs our focus to like what we need to be focusing on and placing our attention in the future that's meaningful, that is going to improve relationship, that's going to make us feel happy, that fulfilled, and not have regret in our lives. Because a lot of things in our life, if we don't let go of the fear, if we don't let go of these aspects that I don't have enough time, or I don't have enough resources, I don't have enough whatever, and do the things that we want to do, we're gonna regret it later on in life. And this is just a simple way to do that. but it's a really powerful exercise.
Incredible. I mean, and everybody there that day and since then has told me how powerful that experience was for them and how it's literally changed relationships. One of the guys was telling me he's more on the level with his wife, more intimate with his wife, and not just sexually, but verbally and emotionally, and wanting to show up for his family differently. High level, successful guy that's, crushing it, but like realized there were certain parts of his life that like needed tending to. And that's the beautiful part of all this is the introspection, the discernment, and then the realization that shit, I'm still alive. I still got time to get this done, and or show up this way, or be a part of this, or maybe not die with regret. That's a big one. I grew up around a lot of old people in my life. I was a child of a second marriage or a second relationship. And so a lot of my sisters are older, and I had older uncles and all this different stuff. And you could see people that were living healthier longer because they were happier, or they were doing things that gave them purpose. And the people that died young or aged young is because they were lonely, or they were sad, or they had regret. And this 5-minute exercise can literally change all of that and get your life completely aligned and in perspective with what matters. So I thank you so much for that. And then, the rest of the time there wasn't long, but we said our goodbyes, and we set off on a new kind of mission and a new vibrancy with life. And Lane was still going to be around for another day or so. So Lane and I continued our journey, and we went up to Kennesaw Mountain, and we went up the mountain. We came down the mountain, 2 totally different human beings. It was really fun. It was interesting because before we had to stop and get hiking boots because I didn't have hiking boots, and I wasn't going to go through that walking on my Nike free running balled ass shoes again. So he took me, and he's walking me through REI, and he's teaching me about boots and his experience in the military. And he's showing me his boots where he did like hundreds of like rappels down fucking ropes. And he's got burn marks on his boots from like the rope, just eating away at the material. And he's like, get these boots. I'm like, you got it. Like, like you're the guy, you know what's up. And he's telling me how he's run marathons in his boots. And I'm like, damn, brother. Like, so I got the boots, and we went up to Kennesaw Mountain, and it was just a beautiful experience, man. We went up there. We still had the medicine in our soul. We still had a lot of stuff going on. And we walked up to the top of the mountain, and we just sat. And, for me, we did like a smaller amount of the medicine to go up the mountain. And when I got up there, everything was actually moving and alive and vibrant, and the emotion was so heavy. And a lot of the work that I'd done through the weekend came up for me again and was so heavy on my heart. It's left my heart heavy to this day, honestly, 2 weeks later. And, we started just chatting about life and about relationships and about the future. And Lane brought up a good point, because it is a battlefield, and most likely blood was shed there and people died, that the actual tonality and vibrance from the mountain was playing into our emotions. Like we were like feeling heavy. We were feeling sad. Lane, you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So, there's energy in the land. Mother Earth has a different energy, and especially places that have had a lot of suffering or a lot of turmoil or a lot of grief. The land itself can hold on to this energy, this frequency. And I've experienced this a couple of times in my life where I was at Gettysburg, and I got super emotional, and just the sacrifice, but yet the people that gave it their all, that what they really believed, and so that I was reminded of that. And then so when we tap into that energy, when we're aware of it, we can then transmute it into something advantageous for ourselves and feel that heaviness. And then, okay, what is this? And it could remind us of a situation in our own lives that we're feeling grief or sorrow or sadness, and then just let it come up, and then just kind of let it flow through your body, and the answer is going to come. And so by the time we felt it and we talked about it, and then we were like, oh, I think it's kind of moving on. And and David and I had kind of talked about this kind of flow of energy during the week. And but being able to just identify a energy or a flow of energy and allow it to move where it goes, and not get stuck in your body or in your mind, and being open to that kind of flow of energy. And so afterwards, dissolved and released. And then we're like, oh, wow, like I feel so much lighter. And, then we kind of just moved on with our experience in life.
Incredible, man. What a powerful, powerful weekend for me personally, and the relationships that we have that were existing leading up to this, and how they've strengthened and they've evolved to where they're at now. And the possibilities are endless, and the things that are upcoming, with you could talk about the Humble Alpha Tour in March. And then I have another one of these putting together with Tori. We're going to do a co-ed version of what we just did, probably about 15 or 20 people for this one. I think that feels right. And the biggest problem we're going to have is finding a space to accommodate. We'll have to figure that out, like the right space. But another weekend, and she'll bring her magic, with her breath work and all that she does. And for everyone that shows up that can add value and be a part of this, we're looking at the beginning of May 2021, right around beginning to middle of May. And we'd love for you brothers to rejoin me on the experience if you can. But for Lane, if you could talk a little bit about Humble Alpha, the tour, the journey, and what you're looking forward to there.
Yeah, so our brother Stephen Kuhn and I, we take veterans and entrepreneurs down to Peru every year, and it's kind of like an experience that we discussed in this podcast, but it's an 8-day experience. Stepping into ancient lands, sacred lands, places that are thousands of years old, and connecting with the last indigenous tribe of the Inca, the Quechua tribe. And we work with their shaman. We work with facilitators in Peru that have been doing this for well over 25 years. And being able to get into that experience wholly and fully is it takes this kind of experience that we had in the weekend to the next level. Because a weekend, getting away, we still have cell phones, we still have all these things that are in our presence, the mental chatter and what am I going to do 2 days from now. And by getting out of our familiar environment and get into a brand new one, it automatically puts us in a state of, wow, everything is new. I'm looking at it through new eyes. I'm almost experiencing as a kid would, and having this wonder, having this excitement, this energy that you might not have if it's an hour drives away, even though this is an incredibly powerful experience. So being able to tap into that full spectrum experience in Peru, and mixing the brotherhood, the bond, the camaraderie with the plant medicine, with the revelations, the insights, the epiphanies, the visions, and letting go of the old. It's just a really powerful experience. And of course, we do some sightseeing. We visit Machu Picchu. We visit Aguas Calientes, which is on the way there, Ollantaytambo, and we have a couple other tours that are part of the experience. But it's it's a really powerful, potent experience. 19 through 26 March, and if you're interested, we have humblealpha.com/Peru, or we can give the link in the show notes. One thing I did want to add though is these kinds of experiences allow us to not wait until the bottom of the barrel moment, or the near death experience, or the man, my life is just so terrible, I got to make a change. Because so many people wait for that. People get in a car accident, people drink and drive and almost kill somebody, and those are the moments where they finally decide, what, I need to make a change in my life. Or they hit bankruptcy, or they hit all these quote challenging moments in life, and then that's when they decide to make a change. And like we were saying in the 5-minute exercise of what's the most important thing in my life that I need to do? Where do I need to direct my focus and attention? We have that ability to do that at any moment in our lives. Literally any moment we can decide that we're going to change course. We're going to go with our heart. We're going to follow exactly where we think we need to go and live the best life that we know how to live. We have that ability at any moment, but it's our decision. It's that deciding factor. And it's moments like these retreats, whether they're in the US or in Peru, that we can have the support of fellow people that are on the path, alongside us, and they're going to support us, elevate us, and help us in those challenging moments, because it's absolutely challenging. But we don't have to wait, So, if anybody is thinking about doing something like this weekend experience, hit up Jesse, hit up me, hit up David, and we'll talk with you about it. We can help you set intentions. We can give you, somewhat of a blueprint. But it's that brotherhood, that camaraderie, but it needs to be from somebody that has already done it. And we're here to help, or you can join us.
Brother, well said. Dr. David, got anything else?
Well, I love what Lane said there, is that right. This is kind of the thing I was talking about from the perspective of trying to find ceremony in our lives and find ritual, right? Because these are kind of ancient concepts renewed, right? Where we can come together and we can bond and we can allow ourselves to pull off the emotional burden and express it, right, in a safe and vulnerable environment, and other things as well, right? What it allows, though, is for us to create these ceremonies of being and coming of being, that are similar to ancient or native cultures, creating rites of passage in a sense. And so if you're experiencing these things sooner rather than later, right, then you don't have to wait to get hit by the truck in a sense, right? For lack of a better way of saying it, right? You start to feel, or you start to notice these things. Okay, I'm feeling burdened, or I'm struggling to find that spark or that flow in my life, or you're comparing, you're just kind of getting bogged down. It's good to create ceremony and ritual in your life to heal, right? And I think making time to heal, whether it's in these type of retreats or even in a daily routine that you do, allows you to tune in and connect. And like we've all said, the underlying theme is how the weekend continue to impact us moving forward, right? And so as you do that, right, you connect, and then that healing goes with you, and you're kind of upgrading a little bit, and it doesn't become like, you don't get to that point where everything builds up and then it has to explode, right? And so I think that's one of the big things that really resonates with me about doing this kind of work, whether it's with men, women, masculine, feminine, right? It doesn't, like, everyone has the opportunity to participate in it. And I think it's right now in our time and in this world, we're ready to step into these kind of things. And so yeah, and I love it. Lane, you put it perfectly. So, but I appreciate you guys, and it was an awesome weekend. I'm looking forward to more, and definitely from the perspective of being able to reach out and guide others as well. It's something that I'd love to be able to serve people in as well. So.
Love you, brother. You showed the fuck up and showed the fuck out, man, when it came to that weekend. So we're thankful for you and all that you do. Lane, anything else that you want to throw in before we head out?
We didn't really talk about integration, but or maybe you guys did before, but integration is such a key role, is that we can have these powerful experiences and know a direction moving forward, but it's that integrating these peak life experiences, these insightful experiences, and how do we integrate them? How do we weave them into our normal day-to-day lives, and actually creating a new way of living for ourselves? And it's beyond the scope of this kind of like last kind of thing that I'm going to say, but integration's a key aspect, and it's a continuation of the brotherhood, the camaraderie, having each other's back, and being able to listen, discuss, elevate, and give advice, or whatever the moment calls for, as we're integrating in our lives, and being able to also show up for our fellow brothers and sisters on their journey as well. So integration's a key role, and maybe we can talk about that another time. But yeah, it's a really it's the most important thing, I think, after the peak experience.
I couldn't agree more, brother. And more to come as we continue our Indiana Jonesing around the world and figuring out what a beautiful, well-lived life looks like for all of us. But thank you both so much for who you are as brothers, as friends. I love you both, and I'm looking forward to the next adventure. But I'm Jesse T. That's Dr. David Bell, the mighty and powerful Lane Belone. Be sure to catch us on next week's episode of The Jesse T Show.